Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session of the Montgomery County Council. It is October 14th. We have three presentations this morning, three proclamations. We are going to start with the proclamation recognizing Breast Cancer Awareness Month by Councilmember Sales, Balcom, and myself. So we'll turn it over to Councilmember Sales.
Good morning, everyone. If you are here for the Breast Cancer Awareness Month proclamation, please come down and join us. I'm so honored to be joined by my colleagues, Council President Stewart and Councilmember Balcom. This is our third year recognizing Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and as grim as the statistics can be, this is about raising awareness and about ensuring that we have better outcomes and better survival rates. So I just wanted to share a few statistics because, you know, as a woman of color, you know, we are more impacted by these statistics. The outcomes for women of color in our county and across the nation because of access to care, because of screenings that are done later in life. It certainly impacts our life expectancy. And so this year alone, over 300,000 new cases of invasive breast cancer will be diagnosed. Over 60,000 cases of non-invasive ductal carcinoma in situ cancer will be found in women. Here in Montgomery County, the rate is more than 200 cases per 100,000 residents. And as I mentioned, Black women are 40% more likely to die from breast cancer than our white counterparts. It's due to Black women often being diagnosed at later stages. Only 58% of Black women are diagnosed with cancer in localized areas compared to 68% of white women. These disparities reflect profound inequities and disparities in our system. And as the council's lead for eliminating disparities, I'm proud that our council has stepped up and has funded over $500 million to address programs that fund breast and cervical cancer screenings for women who cannot afford that through their primary care providers, and also ensuring that we are supporting the families of survivors through their care. During my time as a council member in the city of Gaithersburg, I was very proud to do the first breast cancer awareness walk in the most diverse city in the country. And this is also a time for us to focus on ensuring that we are saving lives, screening early, and ensuring that the survival rates become the story that we tell. So before I turn it over to my colleagues, I want everyone to introduce themselves, and then we're going to hear from a few of our special guests.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Wanda Smith. I'm a social worker with the African American Health Program. I'm also a 12-year breast cancer survivor.
Good morning. I'm George McFarland. I am the project director for the African American Health Program funded by Montgomery County government.
Hi, I'm Pat Grant. I'm a past chair of the African American Health Program Executive Committee.
Julia Kepnes. I direct programs at Brehm Foundation to defeat breast cancer.
Oge Okeke. I am the director for cancer prevention and detection at Primary Care Coalition.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Anise Cody. I am the CEO at Primary Care Coalition.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Katie Smith. I'm a member of the Montgomery County Commission on Aging.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jill Walling, and I'm with Hope Connections for Cancer Support.
Thank you. And now we'll turn this over to our Council President, Kate Stewart.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Sales. Thank you, everyone, for being here. So I speak today as a daughter, as a sister, as a friend, and as a mother, because my mother had breast cancer and passed away way too soon. And this time of year, in October and November, was her favorite time of year. So it's always a time when we do breast cancer awareness that I'm already thinking about her almost every single day. And her birthday was in early November. And so this is really a time of year that I'm remembering her and her life. And sometimes I have to think, like, if she had just gone a little earlier for those screenings, what might have happened. I'm also here as a sister because my sister has had a double mastectomy because of breast cancer, and she is thriving because she got the care that she needed early, and we are so grateful for that because she just became a grandma this year, and so being able to see her grandchildren and thrive is really important. And I'm here as a friend because I've known many women who have gone through this struggle and their families. And want to be supportive of them. And I'm here as a mom because I have 2 children, and every year when I go for my screening, I'm thinking of them first and foremost because I want to be here. Even though they are young adults now, I want to be there for them as they grow up and meet milestones in their lives. And so I want to thank everyone who is up here today, because working to make sure that we spread the information, that we're getting to the early screenings, that we're getting to the care people need, as Councilmember Sales said, is so important for everyone in our community. And so thank you for being here with us all today. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Councilmember Balcom, who celebrated an awesome anniversary this year.
Welcome everyone. I'm Marilyn Balcom, and I have the honor to serve District 2 in the council. And yes, I am a 15-year cancer survivor this year, and so my sister here. And in that 15-year time, there has not been a single day where I didn't know of another woman who was currently going through cancer at that time, including now friends, colleagues, parents of friends. And so it's pervasive, and I'm sure that everyone here, people who are watching, have someone in their lives who've done this. And so this time of year, it's a time of awareness. It's also a time of grief and a time of hope. And so early detection saves lives. It saved my life, I'm convinced. I went every year for my annual mammograms religiously every year. And in 1 year's time, the cancer was found. And so I just urge all of you women to make sure that you get your annual mammograms, and for all the men, make sure that you have these conversations with your wives, your mothers, your daughters, your friends, and it's so much progress has been made. Early detection is the key. So I'm here with everyone here to just make sure that we spread that awareness. So and here's to another 15. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is what we want to hear, more stories of survival. So now I'm going to read the proclamation with Council President Stewart and Councilmember Balcom. Okay. So, whereas breast cancer is the most common cancer among women in the United States, with about 1 in 8 women being diagnosed in their lifetime, and
Whereas in 2025, it is projected that approximately 316,950 women and 2,800 men will face the challenge of invasive breast cancer. Tragically, it is anticipated that 42,170 women and 510 men will lose their lives to this disease. And
whereas October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, a necessary time to raise awareness about breast cancer and highlight ongoing racial disparities in health outcomes. These disparities are particularly significant for Black women who, despite having a lower incident rate of breast cancer compared to white women, experience a 38% higher mortality rate. While non-white Hispanic white women have traditionally had the highest incident rates, Black women face the most significant mortality, highlighting critical inequities in healthcare access and outcomes. And
whereas Black and Hispanic women often receive diagnosis at later stages, stages 2 through 4, and face significant challenges in accessing care that meets established guidelines for breast cancer treatment. This ongoing issue is influenced by a combination of biological factors, social determinants of health, systemic inequities, and obstacles to timely screening and treatment. And
whereas racial disparities in healthcare persist due to systemic racism, unequal access to care, socioeconomic factors, and variations in healthcare delivery and quality. Addressing these issues requires structural changes in the healthcare system, improved access to equitable care, and targeted public health interventions. And
whereas raising awareness through education and promoting early mammogram screenings is crucial for maximizing effective treatment options and improving survival rates. Early diagnosis and treatment of breast cancer can significantly enhance both outcomes and quality of life. When breast cancer is detected at a localized stage, the 5-year relative survival rate exceeds 99%, empowering individuals to take proactive steps for their health.
now therefore be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby declares October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, a crucial time to improve healthcare access and reduce racial disparities. We invite all residents to advocate for treatment access, raise awareness, and support research. We encourage female residents to proactively consult with their physicians and get regularly scheduled mammograms. Presented on this 14th day of October in the year 2025 by Councilmember Lori Ann Sales, Councilmember Marilyn Balcombe, and Council President Kate Stewart. Thank you everyone for joining us.
All right, our next proclamation is recognizing Fire Prevention Month by Montgomery County Council Public Safety Committee and the County Executive.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. The Public Safety Committee is honored to present this proclamation to recognize Fire Prevention Month. Public Safety Committee is Councilmember Lukey, Councilmember Mink, and myself, and the county executive used to be on the Public Safety Committee. He was the chair before me. The National Fire Protection Association celebrates Fire Prevention Week from October 5th to the 11th. But in Montgomery County, we highlight the importance of fire prevention during the entire month of October. Recently in Montgomery County, a garage fire, as an example, had a 2-story single-family home, was caused by an electrical golf caddy lithium batteries, which resulted in $300,000 in damages. Thankfully, 1 occupant and 2 dogs escaped safely, and no injuries were reported by this fire. However, not everyone is so fortunate. Charge into fire safety lithium-ion batteries in your home is this year's official theme of the National Fire Protection Association for Fire Prevention. The theme highlights the growing risk of lithium-ion batteries in terms of purchasing, charging, storing, and properly disposing of them. These batteries supply power to many kinds of devices, including smartphones, laptops, scooters, e-cigarettes, smoke alarms, toys, and even cars. Several situations can lead to lithium-ion batteries catching fire, including overcharging or use of non-compliant charging equipment, overheating, or exposure to heat or extreme temperatures. Some safety tips include following the manufacturer's instructions, only use the batteries that are designed for the device, put batteries in the device the correct way, and only use the charging cord that came with the device. Air County has expanded the curbside battery and electronic recycling program, and recycling is by far the best way to dispose of these batteries. Specializing vendors will recycle electronics, while hazardous waste companies will handle battery recycling. To recover valuable materials, residents can schedule pickups for these items alongside their regular trash service by calling 311. And for more information to prevent fires, check out the Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Services homepage. Thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the county executive to say a few words, and then I'm going to ask the other members of the Public Safety Committee, Councilmember Lukey and Councilmember Mink, and I'd like to point out that I always say it that way because it's in alphabetical order. It's for no other. I always tell them I love all my children. Yeah. And then I'm going to ask the county executive to say a few words to Chief Smedley, who's not here, but Pete Peringer is going to say a few words for him. So, Mr. County Executive.
Thank you. So, thank you all for doing this morning. Each October, we observe Fire Prevention Month, and it's not just a tradition, but it's a vital reminder of the everyday actions that we have to do to help save lives and protect property in Montgomery County. In Montgomery County, we're fortunate to be served by one of the nation's premier fire and rescue departments. With more than 120,000 emergency responses each year, Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service, MCFRS, protects over 1 million residents every day. But today's fire service is far more than responding to emergencies. And under Chief Smedley, MCFRS has championed a prevention-first mindset. And the mindset unites first responders and community risk reduction professionals in the shared goal of keeping residents safe. And through proactive data-driven outreach, public education, and home visits, the department is making measurable difference long before a 911 call is ever made. And the best prevention for fires is taking the right steps to make sure the fires don't start. When we get called out to a fire, we've already gotten beyond the point where we would like to be. So the work we're doing in communities to educate people about fire safety is really important. And this Fire Prevention Month this year, which is being called Charge into Fire Safety, is focusing on the dangers of lithium batteries and the fires they cause. And if any of you have ever seen some of the demos of lithium batteries, particularly in automobiles, and the incredibly high temperatures and the difficulty of putting those fires out, you get an idea of just how different lithium is than some of the other sources of fire. When damaged and misused, they can fail suddenly, and fires can occur very quickly, and they can last, and they're very intense, and they can be deadly. Use only manufacturer-approved chargers. Never charge batteries on beds, couches, or under pillows. That's probably especially bad idea. Stop using devices that overheat or show damage. If your device is overheating, you probably have a problem. Stop using the device, and ensure that your smoke alarms are working on every level of the home. So fire safety is not just about responding, it's about staying ahead and educating and preventing fires by educating our residents. And that's what community risk reduction is all about. That's why our fire and rescue professionals, this is what they do every day. And I just want to thank them for what they do. The education efforts we make in this community pay off. The more people that understand the risks that they face, the more likely they are to take this seriously. Lithium-ion batteries are not your grandfather's batteries. They are a different battery, a different animal, and they need to be treated differently. So thanks for the opportunity, and I'll turn it over to Councilmember Lukey.
No, we're gonna we might have to fix that amongst ourselves sometimes, where where Kristen and I trade up. And Dad didn't say hi to us today till we came all the way down here. Thank you for joining us. I'm very excited about Fire Prevention Month, and we just had a public safety town hall in my district last night where we were joined by our fire and rescue colleagues who gave a wonderful presentation on all the different ways you can prevent and protect yourself from the hazards of a fire in your home. And I want to add a little context to something that the county executive just said, which was about, you know, we're adults, so maybe we don't charge our phones under a pillow. But what if you have teens or tweens in your house? Because what do they do at night when they're trying to hide said cell phone from you? And where do you think it's plugged in? So you need to have that conversation with your teens and tweens, because they don't understand the risks that the batteries inside that device can pose. And it's really, really important to talk to them about that, right? I also wanted to highlight the need not just to be careful about the lithium-ion batteries, but about all batteries. We shouldn't be putting batteries in our trash. You can go ahead and drop them off. There are a number of different retail outlets that do accept them to recycle or to dispose of properly. I know Home Depot is one of those places. And much like our proclamation related to breast cancer awareness, there's a theme today. There's awareness, prevention, and recognition in these three proclamations. All three things require a bit of hit pause and take notice, right? And so whether it's your cancer screenings, and when I'm standing up here, I didn't have breast cancer. I had skin cancer recently, so I have some stitching up here. You have to take the time to take care of yourself. You have to take the time to check things out in your home, like your smoke detectors, like where things are being stored, like whether you're going to bed overnight with your lithium-ion battery charging for your weed whacker or whatever else it is in your garage, because we have a lot of garage fires. And you need to take time to recognize those in your community around you that you're going to hear in our next proclamation, and why that's important and why identity is important. So please do take that time. It is fire pit season. It is festive Oktoberfest Halloween season. So there's a lot of outdoor activities going on now, some of which we will use the fire pits for. And you need to be careful about monitoring that. And I know our folks last night did cover this, the outdoor in fire problems, where the fire starts outside and then affects your home. We usually think about it the other way around. And a fun fact that oddly I learned from our chief of the Sandy Spring Volunteer Fire Department at a BREM Breast Cancer Foundation event, to tie everything together today, is that it takes as much water to put out an electric vehicle fire as it takes to put out a fire in a 4-bedroom single-family home. So I want you to think about that and think about the magnitude of why these safety precautions are so important. Please do reach out to MCFRS. They are here to help you. They do offer those in-home inspections and checks to help you understand how best to protect yourself. And I want to thank them all for their incredible service to our community. Now on to Councilmember Mink.
gonna put an A at the beginning. The A is gonna be silent. I wanted to first highlight a slogan I actually learned at one of these proclamations previously, and that changed the way I behave in my home, which is close before you doze. And that means before you go to sleep, make sure that all those doors, those bedroom doors, that all of those doors are closed. And that was just, I mean, I have thought about all the many, many nights that I've gone to sleep and I've not done that. So I know I don't run my dryer at night anymore. But I also closed the doors in my basement where there's a furnace room, etc. Those doors are now closed, and I have young kids, and they both like to fall asleep with the door open. So after they fall asleep, I come back and I close the door before they go to bed. And what I learned is that that buys you invaluable time. It buys you time for the fire department to be able to get there and put a stop to things before it gets too bad. And so that is so simple. It's free. Anybody with a door can close that door. And so it's just up to all of us to spread the good word. And so I'm glad we have an opportunity like this and like the ones in which I learned that very fact from our Montgomery County team. And now my home is safer because of it. And I also wanted to highlight one of our career pathways, because part of an important part of this work is making sure that we have incoming workforce. I also sit on the Education and Culture Committee, and we have an MCPS pathway that allows for students to graduate with their EMT license. And I was actually just at the Burtonsville Volunteer Fire Department open house, and I met a young man named James, who is 18, and who has been volunteering regularly with that fire department for almost 2 years. He is able to spend full shifts staffing an ambulance. He has his license, and he is using his experience and his certifications to, he's planning to go to nursing school following his high school graduation. And so one of the things one of the takeaways there is that for students, not only do you get this incredibly valuable experience, you leave with licenses, certifications, it's a great pathway into not just potentially the fire department and other emergency personnel opportunities. It's also a great pathway into the medical field in general, whether that's you want to be a nurse, a doctor, etc. So that's something that students can start when they are heading into their junior year. They can do a 2-year program, and they can also do a 1-year program their senior year. And there is an open house coming up, an information session coming up. Is it tomorrow for October? There's one at Edison tomorrow. There you go. So if you have an MCPS student who is entering high school and wants to learn about that program, please have them ask their counselor for details coming up tomorrow. And it's open to all MCPS students. And there is transportation from our MCPS high schools for students to be able to participate in this program. And with that, I will turn it back to, all right, excellent. Okay, we're back to playing the part.
Wait a minute, let me.
Thanks, Pete. Oh, he's got to do a
No,
song.
I'm just kidding.
Really?
I'm just kidding. Well, thank you all for being here. And first of all, we have a heck of a team right behind you. I want to thank the Public Safety Committee, but also the entire council for all you've done. Obviously, it sounds like everybody's been paying attention because you've said everything that needs to be said about smoke alarms, and Chief Smedley really advocates the prevention state of mind, and I'm sure he'll be very happy to hear that you've heeded the warnings that we give. And under the direction of Chief Cooper, we have a lot of operations people here. We also have members of our community risk reduction team here. So those are the people that are engaged, fully engaged in the community. But it really is our responsibility as residents to listen to this advice, take it, and prevent the 911 call. Learn CPR, whatever opportunities that there are to be safe, keep you safe. That's our responsibility. And we take advantage. We like to think every day is Fire Prevention Day, but this week is National Fire Prevention Week. But in Montgomery County, we take an opportunity to engage in the month. A number of open houses have taken place. Hundreds, maybe thousands of people have been coming by there, so we appreciate that. But, it's pretty simple. Check your smoke alarm, have an escape plan, and know what to do before the emergency happens. But thank you for County Executive, the Fire Chief, council members, Public Safety Committee. They really have said a lot, and I was really had a big smile on my face. They are paying attention, and it makes a big difference. We're a large community. We have a lot of people that live here. We're very diverse. but we are very safe as well, and it's because of people that are standing behind me, our operations people, our first responders, but also those in the community and our council members and politicians and our community members that are paying attention and keeping us all safe. So thank you, and check your smoke alarms.
Before we read the proclamation, I did want everyone to be able to introduce themselves, please.
Hi, my name is Battalion Chief Chantel Brown.
Good morning, Beth Ann Nessel, Community Risk Reduction Manager.
Christy Duke, Community Risk Reduction.
Earl Stoddard, Assistant CAO for Public Safety.
Good morning, Michael Kelly, Division Chief, Volunteer Services.
Good morning, Gary Cooper, Chief of Operations.
Good morning, Chase Fabrizio, Assistant Chief of Operations.
Good morning, Raphael Gibson, Battalion Chief in charge of recruitment and hiring.
Good morning, Ashley Robinson, Battalion Chief.
Kelly Mullendor, Assistant Chief of Special Operations.
Dominic Coletti, Battalion Chief, Operations.
Franz Panthier, Assistant Chief, Fire Chief's Office.
Good morning, Rabia Sabakan, Director, Department of Permitting Services.
Hi, good morning. Jeff Seltzer, excuse me, Acting Director, Department of Environmental Protection.
Patsy Warnick, County Fire Marshal, Manager of Fire Code Compliance.
Jim Resnick, Community Risk Reduction.
Thank you all very, very much for everything you do. We're going to read a proclamation. Whereas Montgomery County, Maryland is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all who live in, work, and visit the county, and
whereas fire remains a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and the widespread use of lithium-ion batteries in everyday devices such as smartphones, laptops, power tools, e-bikes, and e-scooters presents unique fire risks, making public awareness on safety, use, charging, storage, and recycling practices essential. And
whereas residents can help prevent such fires by following 3 key steps: purchase only safety listed certified products, charge batteries safely, and recycle or dispose of them responsibly. These are practices that reduce fire risks while also protecting the environment and the community. And
whereas the Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service, together with county partners, the Department of Permitting Services, and the Department of Environmental Protection, continues to advance fire prevention, safety education, and the adoption of strong building and safety codes to protect lives. And whereas the 2025 Fire Prevention Month theme, Charge into Fire Safety, Lithium-Ion Batteries in Your Home, underscores the importance of safe battery use, charging, and recycling, and reinforces that fire prevention is not just a week or a month, but a shared responsibility practiced by everyone every day.
now, therefore, be it resolved that County Executive Mark Elrich, the Public Safety Committee, and the entire County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland, hereby recognize October 2025 as Fire Prevention Month, presented on this 14th day of October in the year 2025.
Thank you, everyone, for that proclamation. Our final proclamation today is recognizing International Pronoun Day by myself, council members Glass and Mink, and everyone who is here for International Pronoun Day. If you want to come down. All right. Good morning again, everyone. I am Kate Stewart. My pronouns are she, her, and thank you for coming to the proclamation for International Pronoun Day. This is the third year that we've been doing this on the County Council, and I was glad to lead it in the last few years. It is something that I did when I was mayor in the city of Tacoma Park. International Pronoun Day actually started in 2018 and is celebrated every third Wednesday of October. And before I continue, we're giving out some buttons that we will pass around, as well as a handout to explain the importance of making sure that we're recognizing people's pronouns. But first, let's have everyone who came today introduce themselves quickly.
Jennifer Weedle, Program Manager for Ending the HIV Epidemic.
Megan O'Brien, Advocacy Specialist, Everymind.
Yvette Scores, Rainbow Youth Alliance.
My name is Philip Alexander Downey. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the CEO of the Montgomery County Pride Family Moco Pride Center.
My name is Shane Hennies. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm the Program Director for the Rainbow Youth Alliance.
My name is Wes Woods. My pronouns are they, them, all, and I'm the Program Director of Marketing and Inclusion for Living Your Truth.
My name is Lee Blinder. I use they, them pronouns. I'm the Executive Director of Trans Maryland. I'm also the Chair of the Maryland Commission on LGBTQI+ affairs.
Should I go to Krista Mink, she, her pronouns. I represent District 5.
Thank you. Charlotte Persephone Hoffman, they or she. I am the Policy Director with Trans Maryland, and unrelated, I am also the first Vice President of the Maryland State Board of Morticians and Funeral Directors. So if you have mortician or funeral director things, you can come to me.
I can't beat that. My name is Nina Blacker. I'm she, her. I'm the Director of Development at Rainbow Place Shelter.
Well, thank you, everyone, for being here. So the reason we're here and we celebrate International Pronoun Day, as Councilmember Lukey talked about before, it is about recognition, but it is also about dignity and respect and making sure members of our community are seen for their true identities. Too often, we make assumptions about people we see based on clothes, based on name. And I do just want to remark on the clothes today because people are bringing it. So thank you. But lots of times these assumptions are made and they're not correct. And in particular for our transgender and, gender nonconforming communities, many times people make assumptions about them. And we know these are also communities who are under attack right now in our country. And we need to make sure that here in Montgomery County, we are not only treating people with respect and we're saying it, but we actually really put that into action. And so we are recognizing International Pronoun Day to make sure people understand the importance of recognizing and using correct pronouns, the importance of doing it in different ways, like your signature line in your email, or if you have a name tag, putting your pronoun. Thinking about those little ways is how we're going to ensure that here in Montgomery County, we don't just talk about being a welcoming, inclusive community, but we're actually taking action to make sure people are seen in our communities. And I just want to say also, I was really thrilled earlier this year to celebrate the physical opening of the Moco Pride Center. And I just can't tell you all the work that is being done by the folks who are up here and other people who aren't here because I got stuck in the awful traffic this morning. But it is just an honor to be here with each and every one of you for all that you're doing for our community at this time. And now I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Glass to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Council President Stewart. And, I so very much appreciate your leadership over the last 3 years, recognizing this important day. And as you also noted, this really continues to build upon all the work that's been done here in Montgomery County over the last number of years, from raising the Pride flag for the very first time 7 years ago, to opening the Pride Center earlier this summer, to celebrating 3 years of International Pronouns Day, because I think now more than ever, we need to instill more love and respect in our public discourse. It doesn't hurt to address somebody properly. It doesn't hurt to address someone respectfully. It doesn't hurt to respect other people. That's really what this is all about. And here in Montgomery County, the most diverse place in the country, we need to continue living our values, living our truth, and respecting our neighbors. So thank you to all of our advocates, all of our community leaders, and everybody who wants to continue making Montgomery County a safe and welcoming place for everybody.
I now will have Councilmember Kristen Mink.
Thank you. What a great day to be able to celebrate. And I wanted to just take this opportunity to answer a question that I've heard a number of times, which is that in light of the Supreme Court ruling, that does not change our curriculum in Montgomery County one bit. It does not change the books on our shelves. It does not change the books that we are teaching. And there is no need for us to change our behavior. We know that we are doing the right thing. We know that we have a strong, inclusive curriculum, and that's the way it's going to stay. The opt-out ruling allows some families to opt out, of which a small handful out of the many, many, many thousands of families being served by MCPS have done so, and we will continue to teach what we know to be the right thing to do. And I just want to note that when one of my kids came home from school just recently and started telling a story about students said, oh, the funniest thing happened today. I'm going to make up a name, but Sam, did you know that this kid goes by Sam now? And I said, oh, no, I didn't. And I was like, oh, no, if this is a funny story, we're going to have a conversation. And my kid said, well, Sam found a worm. And the story was that Sam has changed their name. Sam is using they, them pronouns. And that was not even the story. The story was about the worm. And I say that to say the kids are all right. The kids are fine. This is important. Sam feels embraced, as they should. And the adults, we don't really need to worry about that. We're teaching the right things here in Montgomery County. We're going to continue doing that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I just want to recognize we have representatives from Congressman Raskin's office joining us this morning. Thank you so much. And now we are going to hear from West from Living Your Truth.
A little taller. Yeah, there we go. Good morning. Good morning, community members. Good morning, council members. Good morning, everyone underneath my voice right now. To introduce myself again, I am West H. Woods. I am my pronouns are they, them, all. I am the current program director of marketing and programs for Living Your Truth, which is a Moco Pride family organization where we are dedicated to visibility, strength, empowerment, and education for the LGBTQIA youth and young adults in our community. Through our work at Living Your Truth, I see how pronouns make people feel safer, a classroom is safer, a workplace feels more welcoming, and just giving out education and advice feels so much safer in that space where we are able to communicate with each other on that base and that level. So over time, in recognition of this day, simple language holds incredible power, which I've learned over my journey. How you address someone, how you look at someone, how they look at you, how they view you is very important. So today, it's not just about action, but it's also about learning and love. Recognition becomes connection over time. And I've learned that in my professional workplace, around my friends, around just out in my community, just building connection over time. So I want to say thank you to Montgomery County for always recognizing us people all as one, the they, the thems, the alls, everyone underneath the sun. And once again, we do have the physical Moco Pride Center. So if you would like to visit me and be in resources or in community, we are open Monday through Sunday. And there we respect all people, and we would love to see your faces there. So thank you again today for having me to speak. And I hope that everyone continues to build connection through recognition. Thank you.
Thank you so much, West. And now we have Shane.
Good morning. My name is Shane Hanais. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am the program director for the Rainbow Youth Alliance, serving 13 to 18-year-olds across the spectrum of LGBTQIA sexual orientations, and gender identities in Montgomery County. Though pronouns have become such a buzzword for the trans community, they're not just for trans people. Everyone, whether they're cisgender or transgender, uses pronouns or other identity terms that feel good for them. And by leading with our pronouns, as I did at the start of this speech, or including our pronouns in our email signatures, we're intentionally creating space for others to share their pronouns too. I'm going to take it a step further and talk about perhaps the most important thing about pronouns is not that we share ours, but that we hold ourselves and others accountable to using the correct pronouns. At our most recent Rainbow Youth Alliance meeting, one of the youth shared with me that they found RYA because they didn't feel like their school GSA was a safe space. And I asked the group, why didn't it feel like a safe space? And what does feel like a safe space? And they said, even though they were encouraged to share their pronouns in their GSA, they weren't always respected, and there wasn't a norm for helpfully correcting peers when they got it wrong. So we came to a consensus as a group that we would correct others in our space, not to reprimand people for doing the wrong thing, but because everyone deserves to feel safe and seen. Like the youth that RYA serves, I know what it's like to constantly navigate a society where you feel psychologically or physically unsafe as a trans person. And in that kind of environment, hearing something as seemingly simple as he or she or they can feel like a tank of oxygen in deep water. And this is something so small but so big that we can do every day to support our community members during this challenging time. So thank you to the council for making this proclamation and leading by example with sharing your own pronouns and making a commitment to respect others as well.
Thank you so much, Shane. And we have some resources here if people want them. And because I think the point you made about how we gently correct people in spaces is really important. As the mom of a trans son, making the transition myself and being in a space in our own family with other family members and friends and giving the people that space and learning how to do it well takes some time. And that's all on us to do that work. So thank you for pointing that out. And we have some great handouts if people would like to take them to figure out how you best can be an ally in this space. And so now we'll read the proclamation. All right. Whereas International Pronouns Day began in 2018 and takes place on the third Wednesday of October in order to make respecting, sharing, and educating about personal pronouns a standard practice, and
whereas just as we don't want to assume a person's ethnicity or race by appearance or name, it's important not to make assumptions based on the gender identity of another person based on that person's appearance or name. And
whereas referring to people by the pronouns they determine for themselves is basic to human dignity. It not only shows that we recognize others for who they are, but it's also a sign of respect and courtesy. And
whereas being referred to by the wrong pronouns particularly affects transgender and gender nonconforming people, and
whereas we encourage elected officials and residents to consider how they can help normalize the practice of sharing pronouns, such as including them in correspondence. And
whereas Montgomery County takes pride in being a welcoming, caring, and diverse community that strives to uphold individuals' human right to dignity. With the current administration stripping away people's rights and their identity, it is essential that we continue to uphold our values in creating an inclusive environment. Together, we can transform society to celebrate people's multiple intersecting identities.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby recognize October 15th, 2025 as International Pronouns Day, presented on the 14th day of October in the year 2025 by Councilmember Glass, Mink, and myself, Kate Stewart. Thank you, everyone. And we do have buttons. They're over here somewhere, and we will pass them around the room so folks can take their pronoun buttons as well. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'm not sure doing recognizing breast cancer awareness of an International Pronoun Day is like it's a lot for one morning. All right, everyone. We will now move on to general business. There are no announcements today. The minutes from the September 8th, 2025 tour of the University Boulevard Corridor Plan area, September 9th and 16th. A council session, September 10th, 2025, public hearing, and the September 22nd, 2025 closed session have been circulated to council members for approval. Are there any objections to approving these minutes? Seeing none, these minutes stand approved. All right, our first item, and we're not too far behind because of some traffic issues this morning. Our first item on the council's agenda today is a discussion so that we can have a better understanding of the federal changes, the impact on our grant programs and our food assistance. First, we're going to start with the federal grants, and I just want to say thank you very much to Mr. Murphy, who oversees our Office of Grants Management, to our central staff here at the council. As we know, there are a lot of changes happening at the federal level that are impacting and or could be impacting us in the near future here in Montgomery County. Working with my colleague on Health and Human Services, the chair, Gabe Albanaz, we thought it best to bring the full council together to hear from different departments. Today we'll hear from Office of Grants Management. We'll also hear from the Office of Food Systems Resilience. And in a couple of weeks, we will also turn to and hear from our Department of Health and Human Services, because we, as a full council, as a full body, we need to understand what you all are seeing day in and day out as the impacts of the federal administration, not only to our county government, but also to our nonprofit partners who are doing a great deal of the work in community. And so I think we're still trying to figure out the PowerPoint. I was trying to drag it out. I think we're almost up, and I'm not sure who's going to start, but I'm going to kick it over to our council staff to kick us off. I think we'll first do actually one other cleanup thing because we do have a lunch today. So we are, for my colleagues, we're going to do a half hour on the Office of Grants Management, and I'm going to close that section promptly at around 11:30, so then we can turn over, or 10:30, excuse me, to food systems right at 10:30, and then go to 11. And I'm just going to say, we probably could discuss this all morning, all day. We are going to take an hour today to have this conversation, which is going to be one that is going to continue. So if we don't get to all the questions and comments, we will be coming back to this either in committees or as a full council. So just to set expectations for this morning. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you all.
Thank you so much, and good morning, Council President Stewart and council members. To start, I'll just provide a brief overview of the impact of the federal changes on grant making before Mr. Raphael Murphy, the Director of the Office of Grants Management, dives more in depth for our conversation today. H.R. 1, or the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, was signed on July 4th, 2025, which had an impact on federal grants by way of receding unobligated balances from Inflation Reduction Act programs. However, H.R. 1 is just one piece in the mechanism to disrupt federal grants and federal grant making. On August 7th, there was an executive order that was signed for improving oversight of federal grant making, which directly disrupted federal grants by directing federal agencies to implement a variety of new and restrictive provisions that do impact the way grantees and organizations in the county interact with the grants ecosystem. These provisions have resulted in delays for grant reimbursements, increased strain and uncertainty among grant receiving organizations, as well as a loss of funding and terminated contracts. But I'll turn it over to the Office of Grants Management to dive into this further. Thank you.
Thank you. Raphael Pumalejo Murphy, Director of the Office of Grants Management, he, him, his. Thank you all for having me here today. I also want to acknowledge my incoming grants team who's sitting behind me, Emily Danluk and Anu Gupta, who have been working tirelessly to assess the daily changes in the federal grant situation and provide guidance and support to our departments as we continue to hold on to grants, as we continue to pursue new federal grants. If there's 3 takeaways, and I'll be flying through the presentation given the interest of time, that you should have is that we are seeing new challenges and new disruptions on literally a daily basis from the federal government that impact across our sectors, across the grants that we pursue or have. Other jurisdictions are really going to struggle with this. The nonprofit community is going to struggle with this even more. You have given us the resources to navigate these changes successfully, to support our departments, to have the backup to and training to force our way through these challenges. These other jurisdictions or the nonprofit community do not. And we are pushing forward. The county executive has given us a directive to go after everything we can get. So we're continuing to apply for federal grants. We are staying compliant with our existing grants. We're making sure we're not losing a single dollar that we don't have to. So for the first slide, just to put it in context, in FY24, about 9% of our revenue was from grants. So that gives you a picture of kind of the operating revenues and capital revenues. This is what we're talking in terms of how much we bring in grants. So it's not a huge part of our budget, but it is a significant part of our budget. Next slide, please. So in terms of what are we seeing? These are the changes at the federal level that impact grants. Next slide, please. So much is still up in the air. The White House continues to issue new directives, new executive orders, new policy statements on almost a daily basis. Federal agencies continue to change how they oversee grants, what they put into their notice of funding opportunities, what they put into the regulations, their terms and conditions. We're seeing everything being fought back and forth in the courts. Much of what we're relying on is the state of Maryland, and they're fighting a lot of these battles on our behalf. So a lot of the things that impact us in the federal level, they're not necessarily being fought by the county attorney's office, but by the state of Maryland on our behalf, since a lot of these federal grants are actually grants to the state that pass through to us. Congress, as you know, is shut down. They are debating they passed the Big Beautiful Bill. Actually didn't have much impact on us, but the shutdown and what potential things may be cut is going to be huge. So there's a lot of things that are just simply up in the air and just very fluid for federal grants. Next slide, please. And again, that fluidity and uncertainty continues. So as we see, just will our existing grants be terminated on a daily basis based on what court case comes out, what new EO comes out, what new regulation comes out? It's hard to predict. So far, we're fairly confident that our existing grants will be able to hold on to. And as time goes on, we continue to implement those grants. We continue to spend down the money. And so if the grant does get canceled and there's only 5% left, Well, we've already delivered that service to the communities. Now, cancellation of future funds, grants that we've been awarded, but we haven't obligated yet. We haven't signed a grant agreement with the federal government or through the state yet. Those are a little bit more uncertain. And so those are being fought more in the courts. And it's not really clear how that's going to come out. But as things tend to elevate within the courts, folks get maybe a little more pessimistic because of the judges that have been appointed. Next slide, please. Now, this is one of my favorite charts because it just shows what's going on at the federal level. Well, pick an agency, pick a function, pick who's doing what. And so you can't say in uniformity, this is how we should approach federal grants, because every single agency is doing it different, looking at how they're doing payments, how they're doing policy changes, how they're doing programming and data collection. All varies based on department that we're going through. So this is a key function that we have, is to support departments understand what changes are our departments as they pursue federal grants or comply with them. What is your agency doing? Because it's going to be very different from a different agency. So in terms of agency actions, even what they're doing within that framework, it changes a lot. They are adding new requirements to existing grants, trying to push in amendments and things like that. Compliance is becoming harder and harder as they add also add new requirements there. A lot of those are being fought in the courts as well. Payments, we have not been not paid. So we have always been paid. So I think there's been a lot of worry that we would not be reimbursed for work done so far, and that's the key word, is so far. We have never not been paid. But there are delays. There are extra reporting requirements. We had a DOJ reporting requirement for one department. We looked at the website, we navigated, we advised the department, they submitted the report, they got paid. So, but that's a delay, and that's going to be something that a lot of smaller organizations or smaller jurisdictions are going to struggle with. In terms of opportunities for new grants, we're seeing new funny language being inserted into notice of funding opportunities on page 34. And so going through those with a fine-tooth comb, working very, very closely with the Office of County Attorney, who's done yeoman's work in this regard, has been clear as we continue to pursue funding. And if there's funny language in there, can we still reasonably certify and do that? So far, we haven't seen anything that we can't sign, or we've seen language battled back in the courts to get to a point where we could sign and can submit applications. And then data has been all over the place. A lot of the data requirements are moving, but we've seen entire websites that we're supposed to be referencing from the federal government just disappear. And so we can't reference that. So that's just one of the evolutions that we're seeing. So what are these impacts? Like, we're seeing all these changes on a daily basis. What are the impacts? In terms of the money that we give out as grants to our nonprofit partners, almost none of this is federally sourced. These are general funds, current revenue for capital grants, enterprise funds, state settlement funds, the Jewel settlement, the marijuana funds. All of that doesn't get hurt by the grants at all. There's one grant, the low middle income, which is federally funded through the Department of Environmental Protection. They're on a hold right now. But of the millions of dollars that we give out as grants, not procurement contracts, as grants, there's really not a lot of threat to that for the loss of federal funds. So in terms of budgets, so there is a lot of justifiable impact on, or focus on OBBA, and my colleagues are going to speak to that, and they will speak to that. It is scary. But that really does not affect federal grants that much. It did rescind some environmental grants or energy grants, which we probably would have gotten, or other regional entities would have gotten, that would have benefited Montgomery County residents. But in terms of our day-to-day or operating grants, the programs and services that you're familiar with, not really. It has not impacted that. What's really going to impact us is how this budget turns out. What programs are going to be cut? What programs are going to be reduced? What impact and what holes does that create in the budget? So we're all waiting with the shutdown and exactly how that turns out. We have seen through our consultants and through our liaisons with OIR, Office of Government Relations, that the Senate Republicans really were fighting back against a lot of the cuts that we saw. So it's hard to predict even now how that budget bill is going to come out, but that really will impact us more than anything else. In terms of the shutdown, the impacts of that have been fairly limited so far for us. We still have to comply with our grants. We still have to meet our deadlines. We still have to submit our reports. We still do have some program officers who are engaging with us and talking to us and approving things and letting us move forward. So far, the reimbursement cycle hasn't hit yet. So that'll be at the end of October. So we don't know if it's going to impact reimbursement or not. So we have a healthy reserve of something like $895 million. A nonprofit doesn't have that. So I think this is something, if we're not getting reimbursed a $200,000 payment, that's not great, but we can handle it. For an organization that's a $2 or $3 million budget, that's payroll for that month. So I think that's something to look at, where this is not going to impact us. I think our partners, we need to be looking at them. And I think in general, a lot of the nonprofits that we're never really worried about, we need to be looking at and thinking about, because if they're reliant on federal funds as well, they might need help. In terms of existing funding, it varies. I think we've, again, like I said, we've grown more confident as time has gone on that attempts to kind of rescind signed grants agreements have just not held up in courts unless you fall out of compliance, and then there's existing law that will let them cancel grants. But in general, we're pretty confident about the grants that we have in hand, and those are continuing to move forward. We're continuing to spend the funds. We're continuing to deliver services. What's more unlikely, again, what is future funding going to look like? How are the programs that we've traditionally received federal funding for? What new requirements are going to be there? What new certifications? Is that funding even going to be existing? There's no evidence yet that Montgomery County is being targeted anyway. We just see broad cuts to programs that help our residents being reduced. So again, overall, our assessment is right now the impact to county government is going to be limited in the grants we receive. We're holding on to things fairly well. I think the impact to our nonprofit community and our partners, that's going to be severe. The increased need for services, which my colleague will talk about, the difficulty in managing the federal grants that we have the larger resources and reserves to handle, that is really going to be impacting them. Nonprofit Montgomery did do a survey. I'm sure you've seen it and you've got it, but they did ask their members about how are they feeling the impact, and I think it's a good brief document that should be read, and I think it echoes kind of what I've said. Two key points in that, when they talk about the reduction in individual giving and they talk about the reduction in foundation funding, what we really need to raise the red flag on there is indirect unrestricted funds. Those are critical sources of unrestricted funds for these nonprofits to form core operating services that keep that nonprofit going, especially for the larger ones. And if they lose access to that revenue, like the combined, the CRC, that's really going to hurt them. They can get all the program dollars they want, but if they don't have those unrestricted funds, that's where we really need to worry about these nonprofit partners. So how are we responding? One thing is we're really trying to ignore the headlines, and we're following the facts and legal requirements. We call this noise, and we tell our departments, ignore the noise. Talk to us, work with us, let's pull in OCA, let's pull in our other colleagues who have dealt with this. Let's see if this is noise or something real. So in this next chart, I think it really shows that, like, we hear an EO, we see a directive, we see something, a press release come out of the White House, but is that actually translating into legal language that impacts our grants and how we implement them, whether we can apply for them, whether we can maintain them? It takes a while. And so when folks respond immediately to an executive order, you have to be cautious, because how much of that executive order will hold up in court? How much of that is something new? How much of that is actually implementable? I think the EOs do present a clear goal what the administration wants to do, but how they're actually going to implement it, if it doesn't hold up in court, they're just going to try a different way. So that's something that we're really advising folks on, is what are the actual legal requirements that are going to impact you staying in compliance with grants. So again, we are in compliance with existing laws and regulations. And a lot of this language that we've seen has been beat back to compliance with existing laws and regulations. We can apply, we will apply. We're not going to let the noise stop us from applying. We just need to read more carefully. We need to follow existing processes to make sure there's proper oversight, so that we aren't signing something that we don't know doesn't have other implications. With the next slide, we're not being intimidated. We're looking carefully at the language. We're looking at seeing is this something we can actually certify based on with that? And again, OCA has done tremendous work to support us and our departments in this regard. We are working closely with Office of Intergovernmental Relations to get information to our CODELs. So getting them to the senator's offices, the congressperson's offices, having them seeing what support they can offer us. For example, there was a swath of grants that were given 7-day application period. 7 days. That's insane for a federal grant. But that became a trend, and we collated the data, we sent it up to the CODEL through IGR, and we started to see changes in that. So that can be an effective mechanism. And the office that we were working with had heard this was happening, but we were the ones who collated and provided that data to help them make actionable changes. And then overall, the best defense to all this is just fundamental good grants management practices. Comply, know what know what the regulations are, know what the processes are, meet your deadlines, meet your targets. As long as you do that, the courts so far have not been allowing a lot of cancellation of existing grants. And with that, I understand we have not much time, so I'll open for your questions.
Well, that was a great foundation. I do want to also say that your PowerPoint and also the PowerPoint that you use with communicating to some of our nonprofit partners is in the packet. And I just want to say thank you to Ms. Gosalia for your work on this and the excellent packet. I'll see if my colleagues have questions, but I want to also note again that Congressman Raskin's office is here. As you mentioned, the partnership we have with our federal representatives is really key, and I really appreciate the Congressman's office being here to listen to this presentation and discussion. Also, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Sales.
Thank you. Thank you for the updates. I just had a quick question to find out how we're communicating with our applicants who have applied for grants and are still awaiting updates on the status of their grants, whether they'll be renewed, and then do we have any grantees that are awaiting any outstanding payments?
If I could just, can we keep this focused on the federal impacts? Just because of the timing, Mr. Murphy will be coming back to government operations and we'll have a conversation about our community grants project. But if we could today, because grants can, can inch into many different areas.
Yes, but I don't know
if there are any federal impacts,
Yes, if there are any federal related grantees that are awaiting reimbursements.
No, there's only one federal funded grant that we've given out for the low and middle income electrification program.
Okay.
And so we have implemented budget period 1 and budget period 2, and we are on hold waiting for budget period 3 to begin. So they haven't done any work that we might not be able to reimburse them on. Mm-hmm. They're in a holding pattern, as are we, until we get clearance for that grant to move forward. So we're not going to ask them to do work, spend money that we might not be able to reimburse them for. So that program is on pause.
Okay.
And that's the only one. Every other grant program we do is county funded resources, so this is not impacted.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Council Vice President Joando.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the clear-eyed and sobering presentation. I'm glad we've done so well to request and get most of our funds and not have interruption, but obviously big worries on the horizon that, as we'll talk about. The nonprofit community that you referenced, I mean, that's obviously a crisis. 473 frozen or terminated grants and thank you to Congressman Raskin's office. I think I saw that they were the site for that number. What are you doing by way of, how aware are we of who those people are, how that relates to the larger scope of the work that they're doing? Is there any work that you're doing at this point to be in touch with any of those folks? Can you explain a little more about that number?
Well, we pulled that number from Congressman Raskin's office, but we have informally been in contact with some of them. I know some of the organizations that do have federal funds. And I've talked to organizations who have had delayed reimbursements and they had heard about the impacts on them for that. I've worked closely with Nonprofit Montgomery, Black Collective, in terms of staying in contact with their leadership, asked them, Nonprofit Montgomery, if I could use this. But as of right now, we don't have a formalized picture of which nonprofits are getting federal funds and having we're hearing that there are these disruptions, right, but we don't have any information organized in any sort of way.
Well, I would just ask, I know it's difficult and it's a moving target, but I mean, that number came from somewhere, so I think we should try to backtrack and find out a little more information about that, because obviously we always brag, rightly so, about our nonprofit community supplementing much of our service to residents directly. And when I see 473, I want to know like what areas. I think that would inform our budget process, would inform what you're doing with community grants down the line. So I would just, even just with that number, let's start there. if we could get a little better understanding of, is it food? It's probably a little bit of everything, but just where it's, indexing, I think that would be helpful to us as we're all doing our work.
Yeah. In discussions we've had, I call these invisible needs because they're invisible to us here in Montgomery County government because the federal government has always covered them.
Right.
And so I agree we need to make those needs visible. So I will follow up on that and get back to you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Councilmember Albanaz.
Thank you so much. Obviously, there's a lot we don't know. It's a moving target, and I feel as good as I guess you can feel knowing we're doing our best to stay on top of it. But obviously, we're very much in a reactionary mode right now. I know, I'm sure all of my colleagues and I have just what's happening to colleges and universities and the changing requirements and the elimination of grants related to anything pertaining to DEI, and then changing criteria requiring colleges and universities to sign on to pledges saying that they will not be doing those types of programs and services, which we know are so critical. Are we seeing any evidence of that trickling down to grants at the county level or even the state level? It's not something that, again, it's sadly going to be one of those reactionary issues. We're going to have to rely on the Attorney General to push back legally. But are we seeing any evidence of that so far for local grants?
We've seen evidence of that, but it's all been beaten back, or the language has been general enough that we can certify. So the DEI language comes up a lot as an example, and the original language was you certify you don't have any DEI programs, or this funding will not be used for DEI type programs. And that language was being back in the courts for you don't have any DEI programs that violate federal laws. We don't have any DEI programs that violate federal laws, so we can certify that. So we've seen that kind of language within our grant opportunities, but it hasn't been anything that has stopped us or something that we couldn't work around. But we have not, I think, and that was something when the EO that my colleague mentioned on the grants one, when my team and I went through that, my staff's analysis was, well, this actually isn't really focused on us. This is more focused on higher ed and nonprofit communities. So I think right now we're, as a jurisdiction, they're not really going after us the same way that they are at the nonprofits and higher ed, which I think are more vulnerable.
Thank you. And then conversely, obviously, there's been a huge shift in the federal government's immigration policy, targeting jurisdictions that are considered to be sanctuary jurisdictions. There's been a lot of news about that. We've pushed back against that, and there has been adjustments in what the federal government deems a sanctuary city or not. But in the meantime, I guess there's concern moving forward that grants will require that those receiving those grants show proper documentation of any sort of immigration documents of anybody receiving those services, which of course would be a tremendous administrative burden to say the least, and potentially exclude many of our constituents. Seeing any evidence of that so far, or any concerns about that?
I mean, we've seen language saying that we have to comply with federal immigration law, and again, that's something we've been able to certify. As far as we interpret it and understand it, we are complying with, our requirements. Now, if there's any more of these enhanced requirements, we have not seen evidence of that yet. We've seen talk of it, we've seen it in EOs, but in terms of it actually trickling down to the notice of funding opportunities, the terms and conditions, the grant agreements, the things that are actually legally binding, we're not seeing that. But maybe that's coming, but as of right now, but that's an active conversation. Every time we get a NOFA and we see something like that, it becomes an active conversation between us, Office of County Attorney, potentially, the County Executive's Office. Do we go after this? Is this something we can manage? And so far, we don't see it as disruptive to how we do things.
I appreciate that. And final question for now is, on a good day, you have a lot on your plate, Mr. Murphy, trying to manage all of these respective contracts, and there have been a lot of moving parts, a lot of policy transitions that you've been working on managing. This is on top of all of that. And so my question to you is, from an administrative infrastructure standpoint, do you have confidence that we have the team in place to address some of these myriad of needs? Because we have to stay in front of this. We have these excellent policy principles that you've been able to establish that are helping us shield as much as we can. but there will come a breaking point. And so I think it's important for us to have the appropriate administrative support to put us in a better position potentially than other jurisdictions. Can you talk a little bit about that administrative infrastructure and how confident you are in it?
So I think we have two very different teams. The incoming team, the folks sitting behind me, who really are like consultants for departments. Because at the end of the day, OGM, we don't apply for any grants. We are consultants and we work with the departments to support them to go after grants, even if they're veteran departments and going after grants because of all these new changes. And we are getting more there. You did provide us with, or the Office of County Attorney with an additional attorney who's focused on grants in the last budget cycle. So thank you for that. That's going to be, that person has not been hired yet, but that's going to be a huge resource. So it's, in terms of my team, I think we're good on the incoming side. I think really what we'd like to see investment in is departments, because at the end of the day, departments are going to be the ones dealing with the day-to-day compliance. There's going to be, they're going to need the staff to kind of go, as new requirements come in or more advanced requirements come in, the old kind of budgeting or staffing model for what it actually takes to implement the grant is going to change. But a lot of that is we can build a lot of times we can build that into the staffing of the grant. We just need more staff. If you're increasing the requirements, then the grant should pay for more staff. So I think how we structure our budgets, making sure that we build an appropriate staff, having other support staff within the county infrastructure to support our efforts to make sure we're in compliance, whether that's finance, whether maybe that's more attorneys. I think that'll be visited in the budget process. But I think for us now with our level, we're good. And I think the thing that we really want to protect is the training resources for staff. So just a week ago, or a little over a week ago, we did a training for 43 department staff from 18 different departments and offices. So really getting them up to higher levels of grants management skills. And so having resources for that we can really invest in our existing staff, I think is going to be important as well.
Thank you. Before I yield, I'd be remiss not to just express, I know all of us will, just thank you to our federal delegation who's been doing their best to stay on top of this. You've been tremendously responsible to each of our staffs, including the executive branch, and pushing back as hard as possible. We're very proud of the work that our federal delegation is doing during these unbelievably tumultuous times, and we just can't thank you enough for that partnership. And I do want to thank our council president, who has done a lot of really great work updating our grants processes as chair of our government operations committee, and the information sessions that we've held this year on a variety of topics, including grants, has been tremendously helpful, and we've been receiving positive feedback. So I want our public to know this is all hands on deck. We are working collaboratively together, and we've been through crises before. We have. Recession, COVID, now this. We'll get through this. We just have to remain on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Albornoz. I'm going to take two more colleagues on this before we move over to Director Bruskin. I'll first go to Councilmember Glass, then Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Director Murphy, thank you very much for the presentation. One of your slides you noted was the noise that we are all experiencing. And the reality is the cacophony is deafening. We are all being inundated with it, trying to sort through it. And as people are coming to us, we are turning to you. And very much appreciate the council president's putting this on the agenda today so that everybody could have this information. And as we're trying to get more information, Director Murphy, can you just paint a picture for us as to the different needs and the different concerns and fears that are coming to you? You noted the one federal grant with low-income energy, right? Energy use for low-income residents. But there is a wide spectrum of needs that we have and support services through our nonprofit partners. What are you seeing which not only sheds light on what needs we need to start paying more attention to, and I know we're going to be talking about food insecurity and others coming up, but this is the canary in the coal mine. So where should we be looking, and what should we be most worried about, quite frankly? Where to begin, right?
Yeah, I think in terms of if we're looking, I think it's still very early to say what is the impact going to be of the federal cuts. There's going to be some cuts. Are they going to be the House level? Are they going to be the Senate level? Are they going to be in the middle with what the president recommended and to which programs and how? I think it's so early, it's just speculative. Once that budget bill is passed, I think we're going to have a very clear definition of what those impacts are going to be. And then through the budget process, I think a lot of those are going to be teed up of the holes that we're going to be needing to fill or holes that we can't fill. In terms of, I think my colleagues in HHS and OFSR can speak to more details of the holes that they're already seeing, the impacts of OBBA, which again, didn't have much impact on grants, but has huge impacts on other areas. So I think that is really, if we can hold on to 80-90% of the grants, federal grants we have, that's going to be great. But there's going to be huge other holes, which I think my other colleagues can really speak to. But once that bill passes, we're going to have a very specific notion of what survived, what didn't, and what we might do.
Sure, I appreciate that. And as we start looking at the next year's budget, reflecting on the budget that we had and the process that we went through this year, there were calls from some to start dipping into the reserves, which is nearly $850 million, saying that we needed to get ahead of some of the catastrophic cuts that might be coming. We saw the weather forecast back then, but it hadn't started raining. It is only now mildly drizzling. We know that there's a tsunami that is coming, and we all have to be very mindful of that. And so the concerns that you've raised that we are all aware of, thankfully we do have fiscal stewardship that has afforded us to have a rainy day fund, and we will have to have very tough conversations moving forward about how we ensure our social safety net is strong using those funds. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for all the work that you're doing. Echo the kudos to the council president, and I'm sobered by the conversation. I mean, the reality is the impact on the social safety net is beyond alarming. I really appreciate our federal partners and the office of Jamie Raskin that is in the room here and that has been a partner of ours, as well as Representative Delaney as well. We have two conversations that are happening simultaneously. One is the draconian federal cuts to social safety net programs that not only have a fiscal impact on the county, but also leave a service delivery need for our nonprofit partners that are critical to that social safety net and to the county government and state government. And then we have a federal shutdown and the grants that are halted, as you noted earlier, and we're trying to navigate these two realities at once. And I appreciate you noting and want to acknowledge the work that the council presidents in this last budget, that we did in the previous budget when I was council president, and that we've done previously on our reserve levels, because this is exactly what we were afraid of. We thought it was going to be macroeconomic and not self-imposed dynamics and challenges. Unfortunately, this is all coming from choices, not broader economic conditions. But we are in a better position than we otherwise would have been because we made very sober, serious, thoughtful decisions about our reserve levels and our fiscal policies. My question on that is, you referenced that, but we don't have a plan or a thought of how that is going to happen and work. Is there a timing or a thought process of how reserves might be used to buttress some of these challenges and address some of these issues? Have any conversations happened with the CAO, the county executive, and I see the assistant chief administrative officer making his way up, so perhaps this is a better conversation with him. But to me, that's the second piece of this conversation, is what is our plan? What is the timing for it? Should the council be expecting to have a serious conversation about at what point do we need to make those decisions, and can we be as thoughtful and forward-looking about them as possible to get ahead of it?
Thank you, Councilmember Friedson. Good morning, Earl Stoddard, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer. There's been several points I've wanted to sort of come up here and address several things, and I'm going to echo one thing actually Councilmember Alberno said. This is very much a all hands on deck sort of, I hate to describe it as battlefield triage, but it's as close as we can get within local government to this situation, because I think, as you've heard from the grants office, we're trying to get a good handle on a very chaotic administration's implementation of pretty draconian changes. And so to specifically address your question, I think the council can anticipate they will absolutely see supplemental appropriations. I think we're early enough in the fiscal year, though, where we can sort of sustain and get some understanding of some of the cuts that we're seeing and be able to move some funds around to address them. But I think ultimately you're going to see some supplemental appropriations to buttress some of the areas that are being affected. We're just trying to get a good handle on what exactly, or at least have some more information on what exactly that looks like before we send things over, recognizing that the first wave of cuts will not be the last wave of cuts, and we have to be good fiscal stewards of the dollars over a longer time period than just what the immediate first tranche of cuts looks like. That said, as an emergency manager, I can tell you there's always a desire for more information before you make your first resource allocation decisions. Unfortunately, you can't wait so long that the resource deficit that you've experienced overruns the entire situation. And so I guess I will summarize it to say that we're very much using this as a, we've got a team pulled together. We will continue to look at the information. I can already forecast that you will see supplemental appropriations. I cannot tell you today what exactly those supplemental appropriations will look like, because we're going to have to sort of look at where we have impacts. I will also say very candidly, I think there are certainly going to be areas that we are not, as a local government, going to just be able to paper over in terms of the federal government. I do not believe we'll be able to buttress our entire nonprofit environment. I don't think that those things are possible for us to just all address. But obviously there are going to be social service needs that we feel compelled to have to step into. And I would anticipate that we're going to make requests to address those things. I just cannot tell you today what that'll be. I would guess that probably before the end of the year, we'll have a better sense of where that will be, at least for the first round.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just think it's really important, to control what you can control and over communicate what you can't control, something that I said repeatedly during COVID. And I think this is similar to a COVID related response, and appreciate your background and experience, because this is an emergency management situation for the social safety net for our residents. I do think it's going to be really important that we be sober about the decisions and not be too reactive, but not wait until it's too late, and to make sure that we have a plan, because decisions that are made under duress, particularly in the environment that we're in, are not generally good decisions. So let's find that right balance. I think the end of the year seems like a reasonable time frame, but I want to get out of the ad hoc supplemental appropriation to meet an individual urgent need and take a step back and try to have a strategic framework for how the administration plans to approach it with council input, communicate that to the public and to our partners, and then move forward. And that's what I hope that we can see moving forward over the next several weeks. So with that, I'll yield back.
Thank you.
I will just say, in response to the last part that you said, Councilmember Fritz, that is certainly our approach. I don't think you're going to see onesie, twosie supplemental appropriations come over. What we've asked the social safety net programs to do is sort of give us their best sense of where things are at and put together what that would look like, and we're going to probably package those, and we're going to have to make a decision on the executive branch level, and then we'll transmit that to the council. That the council will also have a conversation there, because I don't expect that everything that the departments identify as gaps will inherently always come over, given that we expect that we're going to have to triage some of these and decide, okay, is this the most pressing need in this moment? Do we want to have the right number of resources back at us? So I see.
And Dr. Bridges is coming up. And I do want to just say, before I turn it over to Dr. Bridges, I do need to end our session today at 11:45. And I appreciate this. This is very important. But we have been having conversations with the county exec's office for months now on how to approach this, now that we passed our budget in the spring, how we are approaching the crisis before us. And I want to thank Director Murphy, because one of the things that we've been talking to folks about is not to do preemptive compliance, not to just hear an EO and then all of a sudden go into action, but to really look at it. And I appreciate his work with our nonprofit community, and appreciate the work with the county exec's office and our directors, particularly the director of HHS. And this is one of the reasons we are doing these full council sessions on some of these larger topics, so that the entire council can hear from our directors about what they are facing, so that when we do receive the supplementals, there is a good foundation and we can look at them each critically and work with our departments on how best to use our limited resources to meet the needs at the moment. Director Bridges.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the team at the table this morning. We've been working with the executive branch, particularly ACO, Dr. Stoddard, and all my partners to my right and your left. There is a plan, as you've indicated. We've had some discussions not only with our partners here in the county, but at the state as well. And you've seen more representation from our congressional leaders here to hear what we're doing. But more importantly, working with our nonprofit Montgomery partners to look at predictive modeling, so that we can target that funding, so that we know where those gaps in services may be, regardless of a grant or procurement. But there will be a need, and as Dr. Stoddard indicated, we've started to put together in tranches those particular gaps, be it Medicaid, be it services to prevent homelessness. There is a plan. So I wanted the council to know that we've been working on the plan. We've had conversations with the HHS chair, Councilmember Albornoz, and other council members. So there is a plan and process, but you will hear more granular level details as we go on and have more work sessions. But like Dr. Stoddard indicated, I was sitting there taking notes, and I said, let me just come and share some of those thoughts with the council this morning to know that we are proactively pursuing all avenues, approaches, and it is an all hands on deck. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Bridges. All right, let's thank you again, Mr. Murphy, for that update on Office of Grants Management. We are going to now switch over to our Office of Food Systems Resilience, and Director Bruskin, don't worry, you don't have to rush. We will add time. We will definitely give you more than 15 minutes because this is a huge area, our on food security here in Montgomery County. So we should take the time we need today. And I'm going to first turn it over to our council staff to see if they're going to tee us up on that.
Nothing to add. Just want to thank the DHHS staff for being here as well. I'll just say the packet, we tried to put it as plain language as possible about the SNAP and food assistance changes. I think we're already starting to see the impacts that SNAP Ed has closed as of September 30th. And so I will let Director Bruskin provide additional details, and thank you for coming.
Good morning, and thank you to the Council President, Vice President, and all the council members here today for the opportunity to share some information on this important and challenging issue that is addressing food access in our food system in Montgomery County. I'm Heather Bruskin. I'm the director of the county's Office of Food Systems Resilience. And before I begin, I think just echoing what's already been shared this morning, it's important to recognize that things are complicated, difficult to tease out exactly what the impacts will be at the state level and at the community level. And there's a lot of nuance and detail. So I will provide a very high level overview this morning, but I can assure you that our team, and I'm joined by two of my colleagues here today, Juan Cruz and Beth Pletch, who are dedicated to doing research and figuring out what these impacts are looking like and building bridges across the state and the region with the many subject matter expert individuals and organizations who are equally trying to decipher what this will look like in our communities. So I think it's valuable to root our conversation today in what food insecurity looks like on the ground and how we measure it, because there is no direct measurement of food insecurity at the hyper-local level. And so we use as a proxy the self-sufficiency standard. In our population of 1 million residents, about 35% of our households live below the self-sufficiency standard, meaning they don't have enough income to cover their basic costs of living, which includes putting food on the table for their families. Within that population, about 10% of our population lives below the SNAP threshold. So by their income eligible for a program like SNAP at 130% of the federal poverty level. Self-sufficiency is defined as 400% of the federal poverty level. You see in the orange band there those that aren't eligible for SNAP but can receive programs like WIC and free and reduced rate meals. And then in the green highlighted section, those are the families that fall in the self-sufficiency gap, meaning they earn too much to be eligible for nutrition assistance programs, but not enough to make ends meet. We also typically have made assumptions that the households with incomes falling in the gray area have the capacity to be self-sufficient and their food access needs are met. I think the reality is there are many households who have never experienced food insecurity or for a very long time have been able to be self-sufficient related to food access who are no longer able to cover their costs for feeding their families and so may be at risk as well. So this is what the landscape looked like before the change in federal administration, and we're still evaluating how this has changed now. Similarly, before we jump into the HR 1 specific details, there's a lot of other things that are going on in our local food system that are also important to keep in mind. As I know, top of mind for all of us is the federal government shutdown. We're closely monitoring what impacts that will have on nutrition assistance programs. The good news is that SNAP and WIC seem to have enough funding to continue through the month of October. SNAP benefits had already been dispersed in October, and the federal government just released an additional $300 million last week to cover WIC expenses for the month. But those reserve funds and carryover funds won't last in perpetuity. And so the longer the shutdown continues, the more likely it is that there will be gaps. The governor has made a commitment that to the extent possible, Maryland will continue the state administered federal programs. But again, there's uncertainty as things carry forward. School meals will continue to be provided, but the ability for local school districts to be reimbursed by the federal government for meals is not happening during a shutdown. And so there could potentially be cash flow issues or other challenges at that level. There's also major impacts on household incomes that we're seeing right now. This is the first week that our furloughed workers will either see missed paychecks or reduced paychecks. The deferred resignation payments ended at the end of September. There's been massive layoffs with the reduction in force, as well as lost wages with federal contractors. And I also think it's really important to keep in mind the ripple effects across sectors as people cut back on their discretionary spending. That will significantly impact those in the hospitality industries and service industries, folks that are relying on tips and their hourly wages to feed their families. Will also see some changes. In addition to income and benefit impacts, we know that the cost of food is up. We all see that when we go to the grocery store. It's up 30% over the past 5 years, 3% in the past year. And we're still waiting on what the impacts of tariff changes will have on the cost of food, whether it's related to fertilizer or incoming products. But that's something that we're watching closely. And those food impacts don't just directly impact residents, but also our food assistance providers who are impacted by the increase in cost of food in terms of their purchases for distributions. And that's at the same time as individual donations and food drives are decreasing, and the other private sector grants are also harder to come by. The one bit of good news is that the Maryland Benefits 1 application was released this summer, which streamlines the application and recertification process for benefits in the state of Maryland, which will be important in the times to come. So there's three major impact areas of HR 1 on food access. The first is in the actual amount of money that residents will receive in support through programs, especially SNAP. There is a variable amount that households can receive in benefits based on a lot of factors, and one of them includes their out-of-pocket costs. There had to this date been a standard utility deduction that all SNAP recipients who were paying for their utilities would receive, about $118,000 SNAP participants in Maryland were benefiting from that standard utility allotment. That has been removed for all households except for those that have a person with a disability or an older adult living with them. And so that will have significant impacts on those households' value of their benefit moving forward. We also have a major change in the way that the benefit is calculated. It's called the Thrifty Food Plan. That's assessed every year by the USDA. It resets every 5 years, and so that determines what's the maximum and minimum benefit that SNAP participants can receive. Previously, that was not capped, so if there were food costs that were outpacing overall inflation, the Thrifty Food Plan would accommodate for that. Now it's required to be capped at the standard inflation rate, so it has to be a cost-neutral revisit in 2022. The last time benefits were adjusted, that was an increase of 20%. That means when it's reevaluated in 2027, it won't actually reflect the true cost of food that has changed. And that also trickles over into programs like Double Dollars, where SNAP benefits can be matched at farmers markets. Beyond the SNAP benefits, the dollars in the pockets of our residents, we also have the direct certification that comes for programs like FARMS and WIC and other programs that if you're on SNAP, you automatically receive those benefits. And the Summer SNAP program is another example of that. We also have economic impacts that we will see with fewer SNAP dollars available for purchases. In Montgomery County alone, we have $12 million per month in SNAP purchases that are made. And so as those dollars are not available to be spent in the grocery stores, that will have impacts in the retail sector themselves. And then finally, the SNAP Ed program is an initiative that has been eliminated through HR 1 that's providing nutrition education, smart shopping, healthy eating and cooking training for children and families across 46 different sites. In Montgomery County, that program was worth $700,000 a year alone. A bit of good news is that the University of Maryland found a little over $2 million in carryover funds that they are applying for this program to continue through February. So their focus is on creating evergreen resources and ways to make all of the assets that they provide for families available, even when they're 6 workers in Montgomery County alone who they won't be employed any longer in those roles, but hopefully the resources can continue to support them. Next slide, please. Okay. The next major area of impact is in who is eligible to receive SNAP. And so we have an increase in work requirements. There is an able-bodied adult without dependent work requirement that has been in place. It requires 80 hours per month of either documented working, volunteering, or participating in approved programs. There had been some waivers that were in place for some states. There were none in Maryland, so that specific removal of waivers for veterans, former foster youth, and those who are unhoused won't have an impact here in Maryland, but it certainly will in neighboring jurisdictions. What does apply here is that there's an expanded population that is subject to this work requirement. So previously, the age had been capped at 54, now it's 64, and the age of qualifying dependents has been reduced from 18 to 14. So if you're 15, or if you have a child who's 15, previously you would have been not subject to this work requirement. Now your family will be. Similarly, 60-year-olds will have to be complying with this requirement in order to receive benefits. There has been recent guidance from the USDA that all of these take effect on November 1st, and that will apply when people either apply for the first time or when they are recertifying. And so that can happen at any point throughout the year whenever an individual's household is up for recertification. There's also been a lot of visibility around this, but participation for non-citizens or green card holders has been significantly reduced. So refugees, people who have been granted asylum, humanitarian parolees are no longer eligible to receive SNAP. And the third area is in the increase of costs of running this program. And so historically, the costs of running SNAP have been split equally between the federal government and the state. Starting in the federal fiscal year 27, that will shift to the state being responsible for 75% of the costs. That will add about $58 million per year in Maryland alone to our operating SNAP for our residents. It's also important to note that this translates to our community-based organizations. So these are nonprofits that are under the state SNAP administration umbrella. And so we have 6 organizations that do that work here in Montgomery County. They will be required to come up with that additional 25% match for their operating starting in fiscal year as well. There's also 4 lead organizations in the state of Maryland. One of them is the Montgomery County Food Council, who supports the capacity of smaller organizations to do SNAP outreach. And due to a reinterpretation by the USDA of the state plan, they have immediate impacts in their ability to get funding for the administrative costs of running that outreach program. In addition to the administrative costs, the costs of the benefits themselves are also impacted by the legislation. So starting in federal fiscal year 28, the states will be required to cover a percentage of the overall costs of the benefits, depending on what their error rate is. And so that error rate is basically just overpayment or underpayment of benefits to residents, often not to the benefit of the participant. But any state with an error rate of over 6%, and just for frame of reference, that's 43 states, will be required to pay a percentage of benefits that is correlated to their error rate. The Maryland error rate currently is about 13%. The Moore administration noted that when they inherited in FY22 an error rate of about 36%, which was the second highest in the country, they were able within about a year to cut that in half. But we are still in the largest impact error rate percentage. And so in FY28, there will be about a $223 million cost to Maryland for covering 15% of the benefits. There's a possibility that that could be deferred to FY29, but still some uncertainty there, and waiting to hear from the state on how they will approach that. So that's the majority of the major impacts of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. But I do think it's important to note that we have tools and strategies in place here to mitigate the challenges that this will cause. We have an incredibly robust network of dedicated community partners who provide food access and SNAP outreach and nutrition benefit enrollment support to our residents. They have identified a large number of supports that local government can provide them in addition to financial and resource support. I've highlighted a few of them here, but I think the two that I want to really lift up is the fact that they need our partnership in deciphering all of these policy impacts and what that will look like on the ground and how they should be adjusting their operations to best match the challenges that exist. And similarly, the emotional wellness of our service providers is important to consider, both inside county government and in the community, that supporting residents through these major changes takes its toll on our colleagues who are on the ground doing this work. A bit of good news is that our office was created specifically for the purpose of monitoring the impact of supply chain and food system disruptions just like this. Sometimes it's a public health crisis. Sometimes it is a government-based crisis. But we are here and monitoring a variety of data sets that I'll walk through just some examples of some of the things that we're looking at right now. Next slide, please. Thank you. You may have seen that the USDA announced that they are no longer tracking the household food security data point that they've been evaluating for 30 years. Luckily, we do have other metrics that demonstrate what's happening here on the ground. A lot of it is anecdotal, and a lot of the data that we do have is pointing in different directions. So we're still trying to analyze and identify trends without making early judgments on what the data is telling us. One of our most reliable sources are the reports from our 60 different grantees who give us information every month, some on a quarterly basis, some biannually, on the number of households that they're serving. You can see here the first 3 quarters of the Community Food Assistance Grant Program reports. And you can both see that the number of households being served is going up. That number is driven almost exclusively by our larger organizations that receive $100,000 or more in county funding. But the other number that we look at in combination with that is that the percent of funding that's been spent by our partners is on track with where they are in the grant period. And so that is a number that we watch closely. If they are well above 3/4 of spending 3/4 a year into the grant period, that's something that we need to take a closer look at. We're also administering a pulse survey starting next week with for all of our food assistance provider partners, not just grantees, 6 questions to gather information on what trends they're seeing in the populations who are coming, because just because the number of households being served is consistent doesn't mean that it's the same people that are accessing services. And so we do want to try to understand if there are some families who are no longer coming for services and there are new ones who are coming for the first time to take their place. So that would look like a flat demand for service when in fact there are gaps that are emerging. We have direct feedback loops with our residents because it's critically important that their perspectives and insights are informing and evaluating the services that we have. We require all of our grantees to administer a client satisfaction survey, which gives us information on everything from what products are more difficult for participants to source to how this access to food assistance is showing up and supporting other areas of their lives. We also do pre and post surveys for MC Groceries and Food is Medicine grant participants to see how that has changed their food access needs during the time of the intervention. We're watching really closely the trends at the retail access level. Our MC Groceries program is in its 2nd year of enrollment and hoping to support additional families this year. We currently have 1,000 children who are benefiting from this program. We see that the things that they're seeking to source are fresh fruits and vegetables and proteins, the things that are first to go when families are shopping on a budget and trying to stretch their dollars further. We're also seeing that by providing access to delivery, the number of families that are walking or getting a ride from someone or taking public transportation to going to the grocery store is way down, and instead those families can use delivery to get access to their grocery shopping. We do Greek geographic analysis. We have zip code level data that we collect from all of our grantees, and we overlay that with mapped resources like the Community Equity Index, so we can reveal patterns and patterns in our grant making strategies to see where there may be gaps, and also make sure that we're using resources as efficiently and effectively as possible. Last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, the Capital Area Food Bank's hunger report came out. This slide is courtesy of them, so much appreciation for the important local work that they're doing to evaluate challenges. But there's a couple of really important stories that you will see here. First, it's that our residents are turning to college savings, retirement accounts, personal savings to cover their daily cost of living. And so that's where their food money is coming from. And in addition, we're seeing increased demand or challenges in making those minimum credit card payments. And so that means that our neighbors are living on borrowed time when it comes to covering their basic costs of living. And that in itself will have a cliff of available resources. Also just want to reiterate that our team does not collect any private information on any of our grant-funded programs. This is an area of significant sensitivity of all of our grantees, and we strive to strike that balance of making sure we have enough information to know how public funds are being stewarded, while we also don't create an environment where people are uncomfortable or afraid to access support. Thank you. A little bit of encouragement that we have seen is the strategies that we were already pursuing are the right paths to be on for ensuring that we're maximizing funds from other programs. We're leveraging partners in non-traditional sites like healthcare centers and schools. We're centering our residents in the decision making, both in terms of shopping as well as how we're shaping our programs, and we're diversifying our food supply. We're sourcing from some programs from local farms, from others from larger wholesalers and distributors who can get cost efficiency. And so we need to, for being resilient for future crises, continue to lean into the strategies that we started in the first place. And then last, I will zip through some, we can keep going, some additional resources that our office has created recently to help people get connected to the resources that are there. We've created a revised multilingual food assistance referral pathway. We also analyze use of this resource online to know which links get the most traffic. We're creating an e-learning platform for MCG employees and also providing trainings for caseworkers across all of the different agencies so they can be aware of how they can refer residents to food assistance services. We have a calendar that's all of our grantees are required to post their events on that is in real time telling folks where they can find food that day or that week. And the Food Council has their ongoing food assistance resource directory that shows geographically where all of our food assistance providers are. We're just wrapping up our food assistance provider census, and so that is collecting information from all of our partners on how their services have changed so we can avoid overlaps and make sure residents are served more effectively. And then finally, this direct engagement with residents continues. We're looking into establishing pathways for referral through text messaging and also encouraging residents to connect with us to share their feedback through surveys and testimonials where they feel comfortable. Our community partners continue to meet in geographic and county-wide peer learning circles that are facilitated by the Food Council and give them capacity building resources on everything from soliciting grants and donations to how they can operate more efficiently. And then we're facilitating our Office of Emergency Management partnerships in building a long-term resilience building strategy so that we have those established pathways across all agencies as tied to food. And thank you for the opportunity to share this today, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Director Bruskin. You answered a lot of my questions, particularly towards the end, because I think one of the things that we are hearing is awareness and raising awareness that people can have food delivered where before, instead of picking up. I know talking to folks in Poolesville, they've shifted from like weekly to making sure people have groceries for like a month or a couple of weeks so they don't have to travel as much. I guess I don't have a question for you because I think all those pieces are there. But as you are training other folks in our county government, I have a request that you include some of our staff in that as well, because we are all also getting many questions, emails and things, and we want to make sure we are pushing people out to the correct places so that as you are working with other departments and training caseworkers and everything, that you include our staff in that as well.
And your staff's constituent services are deeply appreciated, and we were grateful for the chance to come and do a lunch and learn a few months ago, and are always glad to come across the street and provide trainings. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn first to Councilmember Friedson.
Thanks, Madam President. This is even more sobering, perhaps, than the last conversation that we had when we talk about the food, shelter, and clothing, the most basic, fundamental human needs, and the challenges that we now face. It's abundantly clear that the federal administration is abandoning its leadership responsibility to protect our most vulnerable, to partner with us in state and local government, and the need for us to address these issues locally and regionally. And I just want to express my appreciation to you. I chair the Council of Governments Food and Agriculture Policy Committee, and you have been such an invaluable member of that effort in not just tackling this issue here in Montgomery County, but regionally, since this is a national and a regional issue, and we're going to have to tackle it together. Over the summer, we convened regional policy makers and food producers, nonprofit service providers, and talked about these very issues. And that was before the federal shutdown. And many of the things that have been shared today, we knew in the summer, unfortunately. And now some of the things that are going to get worse, we don't even know yet, aren't even included in the data that has been shared today. And the data is just deeply, deeply alarming. 230,000 families across the region will lose some or all of their SNAP benefits. It's just it's an absolutely staggering number. Capital Area Food Bank, and I'm glad you mentioned their report, they've given out 5 million more meals this fiscal year than expected due to the increased need. And again, that data is before the federal shutdown that impacts a disproportionate number of our residents. And we saw what is happening, where people are using savings accounts and college savings plans and retirement savings and essentially paying for food on their credit card without the ability to fund it. And eventually that is going to run out. One of the things that was most staggering to me recently, all of these impacts at the federal level and reductions would require every single food bank in the United States to double their operations overnight in order to fill the gap. Even if we had unlimited resources and money, which we don't, that would be impossible to do in the time that it would be needed to ensure that kids, the adolescent kids 15 to 18 years old who are going to be kicked out of a food program, who desperately need it, the older adults, the vulnerable people, need food. It's just an absolutely alarming dynamic. I am grateful that you ended on the strategy and on the efforts that are being undertaken. We're working, as you know, at COG to try to address this on a regional level. I think Montgomery County in many ways is at the forefront of this. Your office in particular really is leading the way. I think that we found a way to respond to a crisis during COVID, and one of the lights of that is the creation of your office and turning this into a more collaborative and consolidated effort to address these challenges. We need to do that at a regional level too. And hopefully we can rethink things like food procurement at the local level. We can address some of the resiliency of our food system, starting with the producers of food and all the way through those who desperately need food, to make sure that they're not just getting access to food, but getting access to healthy food, culturally relevant food for them, and that we can address this local challenge that is a national challenge on the regional level and at the county level. So I just want to thank you mostly to not just this report, but all of the efforts that you are undertaking for the regional leadership mantle that you have demonstrated and the work that we need to do. This is going to get worse, a lot worse, before it gets better, unfortunately. And we just have a lot of work that we're going to need to do.
Thank you. We are running over, so if I ask that you ask questions and that we can move on to our other business this morning. Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. So I just wanted to highlight, I can't imagine going through this crisis without the Office of Food Systems Resilience. It's been so effective in really pulling together a very complicated network, so I appreciate that. But I do think that this conversation does highlight the prior conversation of being prepared with a proactive strategic look at how we're going to address this, because we can't have a knee-jerk reaction to trying to fill all the holes, and so we'll rely on you for that expertise. And I just do want to mention the SNAP Ed issue. For so many of our families, that is the touchstone. That's the connector that brings families into all the other services that we provide. And so I think that we just need to look at how we can continue that without the federal funding. And so that's, I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for highlighting that. It was devastating to see that program gutted the way it was, and how quickly. So thank you very much for lifting that up. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bruskin. And that Lunch and Learn that you provided a couple of months ago was a preview to what we're seeing right now, and we all sort of acknowledge it's about to get a whole lot worse. I just want to sort of uplift the importance of us doing cross-collaboration, which I know we all know, but just as a specific example, the workforce eligibility requirements are particularly impacting families with loved ones with disabilities, because many of the caretakers are often parents or siblings who are not able to pay for the aid and services that their loved ones need, and so they're taking it upon themselves to provide those services. The same is true of our aging community as well. Many of those folks now, in addition to having to take care of their loved ones, have specific hourly work requirements that are going to be all but impossible to meet while also taking care of their loved ones who often need 24/7 care. So those families obviously need additional levels of assistance. One of the things I did want to ask you about, Ms. Bruskin, though, is I know the District of Columbia announced a couple of months ago that they are aggressively trying to help their residents fill out the additional paperwork so that as few of them fall off the rolls as possible. I know our Department of Health and Human Services is working on this, but from your perspective, would love to hear your thoughts on other potential strategies in addition to that to assist families fill out the additional layers of paperwork that, let's be honest, are intended so that people fall off the rolls. So what are we doing to counter that?
Thank you all very much for your comments and questions. It is difficult that right now we both have decreased resources for helping people participate and apply in SNAP and maintain their eligibility, while we also have increased restrictions that need to be managed through SNAP outreach. And so the organizations that we rely on to help people with their applications and their recertifications and provide outreach, it takes time and staffing to show up at outreach events. They're going to be struggling, and they will be losing tens of thousands of dollars that they used to get from the federal government to do that work. And so we have $300,000 worth of grant partnerships with 6 organizations through our Nutrition Benefits Outreach Grant Program. We pivoted that program this past year to be more inclusive of programs beyond SNAP, recognizing that if we have those touch points with those residents, we want to not look just at SNAP, but make sure that they're on free and reduced rate meals. And with the direct certifications going away, those touch points are more important than ever, because there's a lot of families that just automatically were participating in programs and now they have to intentionally apply. And so I'm exceptionally glad that we made those investments in those organizations. They are nimble and efficient and deeply rooted in the community. They bring language skills that I think are exceptionally important to complement the valuable work that's done by our own Office of Eligibility and Support Services. And we're also building partnerships across our grant programs. So the navigation team has been exceptionally helpful in working with our nutrition benefit outreach organizations to make sure that they're referring to each other. And if there is someone who's not eligible for one of the programs that they're screened for, they're then intentionally referred to one of the other OFSR funded programs, so that we maintain that warm connection and get people enrolled where they best fit. So not looking at programs in a siloed way, but making sure that and that gets to the training referral partners, that people know everything that's out there. So when they connect with a family, they're making them plugged in wherever they can be.
Thank you so much. That's helpful. And of course, we don't have time today to talk about the government shutdown, but in the space of food system resilience, it's going to have a huge impact. We saw this during the last government shutdown, which lasted 35 days. And when federal employees missed that second paycheck, they missed their first this week, but when they missed their second, the cascading impact across all of our systems is profound. And of course, as was noted earlier, our nonprofit organizations who do receive more federal grants than maybe the county does are already not receiving checks during the government shutdown. And so they're going to begin to have payroll issues as this drags on further and further. So, Madam President, we've talked about this, but I think we are likely going to have to convene another full council meeting in the very near future if this continues, because everything we're talking about right now is going to be magnified by 10 just in the short term. So that's sad, but true. I yield back to you, Council President.
And I'll just add that we are looking at as many data points as we can to understand what trends are impacting people's food access. And so some, I think, encouraging information that I've seen is that MCPS, their Division of Food and Nutrition Services, shared with us that their September 2024-2025 year-over-year meal participation was virtually the same, so that we know that kids are continuing to be fed in schools. And I encourage everyone to raise awareness that families who are impacted by the shutdown can apply for free and reduced rate meals. Those applications are open always for families with changes in circumstances. And our farmers markets, while some that are in communities that are more heavily impacted by immigration enforcement are seeing dramatic drops in SNAP redemption and in foot traffic and sales. Some of those that are in more rural communities or that are a little more off the beaten path are seeing dramatic spikes in access. So I think we both need to figure out where people are getting their food assistance so that we can lean into those areas and then provide buffer support in the places where it's needed.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Councilmember Sales?
Thank you. I'll keep my remarks short. I'm just, just as overwhelmed by this news with the holidays coming up and the continued aggression towards our immigrant community and the significant barriers that they are going to face and what we are creating to ensure that they still have access to resources. I saw the calendar of events for food distributions. Are there specific alternative programs, resources that we're sharing with our immigrant families, our refugee families that are going to be significantly impacted? How are we communicating this information outside of what's on the website?
Yes, we try to work with our community partners and grantees to defer to their preferences and expertise related to what information is shared about their distributions. And so that is something that we've been evaluating on a case-by-case basis. We also lean into our community partnerships because they have the trusted relationships. Our Food as Medicine programs are supporting students at school-based health centers. Our school-based food assistants, grantees are supporting children at 99 different school sites, and many of our cross-sector partnerships have been particularly important. And so making sure that our colleagues who are providing support to immigrant families have the resources that they need to directly support them and refer them to services wherever possible.
Will there be any steps taken to streamline the application process to reduce barriers for any resident seeking assistance? Are we doing any internal changes?
We are working with the organizations that are collecting data and to remind them that there's always the opportunity to respond, prefer not to answer. And so there are different perspectives across all of the different organizations on how you approach data collection. We're also working with the Food Council to provide capacity building support and training to our organizations on how you can discreetly and thoughtfully collect the required information and ask questions where possible, but also not create challenges for the efficient distribution of food.
Thank you for that. And thank you again to our federal partners who are on the front line of trying to ensure that we get these resources, reopen the government, and get things back in order. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you both for your presentations, Dr. Stoddard for being here, Director Bridgers for being here. This was very helpful. As we've said, we know the impact on our community is great, and with the shutdown compounding, as Councilmember Alberton said, all the other things that we were feeling from the federal government. This provides us as a council a good foundation on understanding the response from our county government. I am thankful that we have the Office of Grants Management, that we did planning in last year's budget to provide those resources, and that we have stood up the Office of Food Resilience is incredibly important right now as we're responding to this. And Director Bruskin, I just want to say thank you for not only collecting the data and having that as part of your office's mission, because it's not always a part of it, as we're seeing data collection crumbling at the federal level, but combining that with hearing the voices of individuals and not losing that as well. And I want to thank your office so much for doing that work. And I do want to say that, again, thank you to our staff. Everyone should read the packets, because as we navigate the next few months, as we do see supplementals come over regarding the need, the packets that our staff have created for us today really do provide the foundation, and in one place the information we're going to need as we are evaluating and making decisions. So thank you so much for all that work, because I know it was a lot of work on behalf of all of you. Just to look forward, on November 4th, we will be digging into and looking at federal changes and impact on Medicaid programs. We also currently have scheduled on December 9th an update on the fiscal plan, which is typically scheduled at that time of year to look at our economic forecasts. And we may add, as Councilmember Abernathy said, other sessions as well. Committees may dig deeper on some of these topics, but I think just want to really appreciate everyone for starting or continuing, really not starting, but continuing this conversation today, and all the excellent work that you're doing. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. We'll move on now and sit as the district council for 3 items. The first is the introduction of zoning text amendment 25-13 omnibus revisions, clarifications, and corrections. The lead sponsors are Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez and Friedson. A public hearing is scheduled for November 18th, 2025 at 1:30 p.m. I will turn it. You guys are good? All right. Ms. Nadeau. Well, all right. I appreciate that. Ms. Nadeau, once you get settled, we'll let you highlight this bill and then move on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is ZTA 2513. It is an omnibus ZTA. That means it contains a few different measures all under one ZTA. Some are technical corrections, some are more substantive. There are 6 different things happening in this one. The first is amending the height restrictions for a regional shopping center in the RSC overlay zone. This will allow more flexible development on 2 of our mall sites. The next change is placing back a floor area cap of 30% on household living uses in the employment zones to preserve existing retail spaces. This is a follow-up to ZTA 2503, the office to residential reconstruction ZTA. Next, this ZTA will add the word notwithstanding, every lawyer's favorite word, also to the new commercial to residential space. There were 2 different competing provisions, so we like that word because it lets people know which provision should trump. The next change is clarifying some of the townhouse living uses. This goes back to ZTA 2401, which the council passed last year. As it reads currently, there's a design for life section, and then also the section allowing housing if you're doing religious assembly or educational institution. The way it reads now, it wasn't clear if a developer had to do both, so this is clarifying they can pick which one. There is a change in here to allow accessory structure setbacks for boats. This addresses issues we've heard about people parking old vehicles and boats and other items in their yard. This provision will push them away from the lot line of your neighbor. And then lastly, there are some updated references. There was a section removed in a prior ZTA, and we want to make sure we correct all of those references so you don't go to the code and find that that section's not there. And that's it for your omnibus.
Great, terrific. Not seeing any questions or comments. This ZTA is introduced. Next for District Council's consideration is action on subdivision regulation amendment 25-02, technical review, optional method, workforce housing development. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee recommends approval with amendments. I will first turn it over to Chair of PHP, Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for your partnership on introducing this SRA. It was a companion to the ZTA 2502 workforce housing, and it is intended to address some remaining questions and provide additional clarification specifically related to when properties are subdivided, both when they are subdivided by creating smaller lots, but in this case generally consolidated by combining lots, both of which are part of the subdivision standards. This would specifically provide greater clarity regarding flag lots and through lots, which we talked quite a bit about in our discussions throughout the ZTA, provide clarity about allowable consolidations, and clarify that non-eligible lots can't be consolidated with eligible lots. The idea is to address some of the outstanding issues that couldn't be addressed in the zoning text amendment itself. The zoning text amendment looked at existing flag lots and through lots. This question is the creation of flag lots and through lots, and the intent here was to be consistent in both. Since the introduction of the SRA, we received correspondence from several stakeholders, including municipalities and neighborhood organizations, asking for additional measures in the SRA, particularly related to oversized lots, some of the largest lots that we have seen. And we received correspondence asking us not to add any additional measure that would make it harder to build housing or to consolidate to a greater extent. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee held a work session on September 29th, and the committee recommended approval with amendments. On flag lots, we defined flag lots and created a new term for subdivision under optional method workforce development. We want to allow the planning board to approve the subdivision of lots to achieve home ownership under ZTA 2502, and there was a clarifying language that we were able to come up with to define that, to make sure that we weren't preventing things like, the creation of small townhomes, for instance, that are owner occupied, to be able to be moved forward and be considered unintentionally a flag lot, which is not really what was ultimately being discussed. So we define the term flag lot, a lot with a single family dwelling with a house in front of it, no road access, but a narrow driveway. We created a new term for subdivision, a lot within a subdivision that does not have access due to being part of a duplex, triplex, or townhome building type. And we added multifamily, even though our zoning attorney didn't think that it was likely at all. We added it for belts and suspenders because there was no concerns with it. The main bulk of our conversation, besides the additional definition for clarification purposes, was to discuss consolidation standards. The SRA has introduced limited to 3 eligible parcels. We received a proposal to implement a cap instead, using the minimum lot sizes of those 3 as the standard. And ultimately, we weighed a number of options and decided as a committee, voting 2-1, to use the median of the lot standards, not the minimum of the lot standards, which provided a balanced number in the 3 major residential zones, and allowed us to make sure that we weren't setting the minimum where if it was 1 square foot above the minimum, it would have made that lot ineligible, which would have, which was a concern. Ultimately, that was a 2-1 vote. We can discuss that in further detail if there is interest. And that was Councilmember Joando dissenting with Councilmember Fani Gonzalez and me. We also heard continued questions about whether ineligible lots can be consolidated with eligible lots, which the SRA has introduced did not allow, but it was not as expressly plain spoken in it as possible. And so we did add additional belts and suspenders type language to make that clear. And that was a 3-0 committee vote. That's really the bulk of the conversation. The really only outstanding question dynamic that wasn't a unanimous discussion was the question of the median versus the minimum for the consolidation of lot sizes. And with that, I just wanted to thank and acknowledge Ms. Nadeau for all of her Herculean work on this, who just did a terrific job addressing some of these issues, which are very complex and very nuanced, and try to come up with every conceivable dynamic that could have arisen as we navigated through this. So with that, I will yield back. We have a committee recommendation on the SRA, 3-0 as amended.
Great, thank you. Ms. Nadeau, anything else to add to that?
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Council Vice President Jawando.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I supported the SRA, even though I didn't support the underlying ZTA, because without this, there would have been no limit on consolidation. So we obviously heard from a lot of folks around that, some wanting no consolidation at all, some wanting unlimited consolidation. And I just wanted to explain to colleagues that I think I selected option C because it would have allowed 3 times the allowable. So if you had an R60 lot, it would be 18,000 square feet. I think that was reasonable. There were 3 options, but I still supported the SRA because there should be some limits, and just wanted to explain that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any other comments or questions. We have a recommendation from the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. This is a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lukey.
Yes.
Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink.
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales.
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Friedson.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedson votes yes. Councilmember Glass.
Yes.
Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz.
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Albornoz.
Yes.
Councilmember Albornoz votes yes. Councilmember Fani Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Fani Gonzalez votes yes. Councilmember Balcom.
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Jawando.
Yes.
Councilmember Jawando votes yes. Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes.
And thank you. And I just want to thank Ms. Nadeau, thank the entire committee for Planning, Housing, and Parks for their work on this, and thank the members of the Planning Department who are also here to get this where it needs to go, and to work with members of our public. So just thank you very much for all that work. All right, our final district council item for today on the agenda is action on Development Plan Amendment 25-01. Willow Manor at Clarksburg LLP. This is 22705 Gosnell Farm Drive in Boyds, Maryland. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Nadeau and Ms. Byrne.
Okay, so I won't bury the lead. I know the number one question here is what is a DPA? So a DPA is very similar to an LMA. As you know, LMAs let you rezone a property, and then you have a floating zone plan. So this one was approved in 2003 before our beloved 2014 zoning ordinance. And the applicant wants to make a change to that original plan. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, they have to come to the council to do that rather than amending their preliminary plan. So that's what's before you today. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Byrne.
Good morning, everyone. Just picking back up on what Ms. Nadeau said, we said the same thing when it came in, because there are those of us in the office that, came in after the 2014 code change. And it's really interesting in a nerdy land use zoning sort of way that what used to come before you was both the map amendment plus the development plan. So you got into the weeds with that whole schematic. So you essentially did the heavy lifting, which planning board does now. And so the process is, now that the DPA has all the way gone through, they're doing the amendment. It went to planning board. Planning board did the heavy lifting. There was no objection. Planning board recommended that OZA not hold hearing. So we did not hold a hearing. So our role essentially was to take the information from the applicant, take the planning board recommendation, look at the transcript, essentially serve as the middleman, distill it down for you in a report and in a resolution. So this particular DPA is, the property's located, this section of where the DPA is Clarksburg Road and Gosnell Farm. There essentially is seeking only to modify binding element number 8, which read 500 units for independent senior adult living. They want to increase that amount to 650. So if you're looking at the MPDX zone, that's the entire DPA. And at the top is subpart A. I think it's essentially what it's called. And right now on that, what was originally intended was a hotel to be improved. Rather than the hotel, they're going to create senior living. So with this additional senior living, they would go over the original cap. So we're looking for 650 versus the 500, so adding an additional 150 units of affordable age restricting housing. Both staff and county planning recommended approval of the DPA. They unanimously voted that it's consistent with the purposes of the MXPD zone, meets all the applicable standards, and is in substantial conformance with the master plan and special study area, as well as Thrive Montgomery 2050.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm not seeing any comments or questions at this time. Thank you for filling us in on a DPA and walking us through that. If we are accepting the hearing examiner's recommendation, so we have this recommendation on DPA 25-01. This is a roll call vote. So, Madam Clerk, will you call the vote?
Councilmember Lutke?
Yes.
Councilmember Lutke votes yes. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Friedson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedson votes yes. Councilmember Glass?
Yes.
Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Albornoz?
Yes.
Councilmember Albornoz votes yes. Councilmember Fani Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fani Gonzalez votes yes. Councilmember Balcom?
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Jawando?
Yes.
Councilmember Jawando votes yes. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Item 3 on today's agenda is the consent calendar. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Council Vice President moved. Council Member Balcom seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand, and that is unanimous. All right, the council will now take a brief recess. We're going to move to the Capitol Crescent Trail Conference Room on the 4th floor to meet with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governors Executive Director. That will take place at approximately 11:45, and then we will return to our broadcasted and streamed meeting at 1:30 for our public hearing and a briefing from our planning department this afternoon. So thank you, everyone.